No call.
Warning, Neo detected. Warning, Neo detected.
All right. How's everybody doing on this Monday night? My name is 12 Gauge and welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I hope you guys are doing okay. Wanted to get on here and I wanted to go over some things that, you hear so much stuff every day. I want to go ahead and take out the elephant in the room. So, Richard Allen was found guilty. And whether you feel positive or negative about our judicial system, unfortunately, it is the best that we have to offer at this point. I don't know all the ins and outs of that case, so I'm not going to stand up here and act like I'm an expert and I'm going to be able to tell you everything about it because I'm not going to fake the funk, Rondi, Leslie, and Billy, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully some other people will join you guys here in a little bit. That's kind of one of the reasons that I put the header up, one down, one to go. How confident is the defendant now? And one thing that still gets me, and I'll never be able to change people no matter how much I gripe about it, no matter how much logic I bring to it. People are stuck with their mentality and their views and their beliefs no matter what. You can't change them. So if you view me as a guilter, if that's the word that you want to give me, then that's cool. You can call me a guilter. You can call me whatever you want. I have been sick. I've been sick since like Saturday, but I'm trying to feel better. I'm going to go to the doctor in the morning, hopefully get a shot to clear this stuff up. But one thing for certain, there's a lot of individuals on these panels that they're quick to throw around names. They're quick to make people attached to a certain name just because they don't agree with the narrative that they're putting out there. And like you've heard me say, I'm going to stick to mine no matter what, so people can think what they want about me or whatever they believe about me. I'm going to stay true to me. So, and if it comes down that this individual is not guilty, I'll be the first one to say, hey, good job. Good job. Good job, court. Good job, attorneys. Good job, investigators. You did the best you could. Now get on the case and go find out who really did it if he's not the one. You know what I mean? So that's how I stand about things. I'm not so narrow-minded that I'm going to be like, okay, if he's not guilty, I'm going to hate him. No, I'm not that type of person. But there's a lot of individuals that seem to be like that, you know. Um you're either part of what they believe, or they turn on you and they hate you, and they they want to call you names and they want to put you down and stuff like that. Well, hopefully Leslie and Billy, hopefully tomorrow when I get a shot, hopefully it clears it up. I've been out in the wind and there's been a lot of dirt and crap in the air, so it happens all the time. You know, I have mild asthma, so it just throws me into a mess. And some people say my voice is really deep, deeper than they're used to hearing it. So you got that Teddy P voice going on, you know what I mean? But let me go ahead and get this video started. That way we're not here all night. And if you hear me coughing, please excuse that. I'm not trying to be rude, but you know how that goes. Sometimes you can't help it. And I do ask you to keep an open mind. We do agree to disagree in here, and we do have a dialogue going on. We don't call people names. We don't make fun of people, and we don't insinuate that people are not smart in any way whatsoever just because they don't believe what we believe. So I hope you know that, because the mods have been informed that if people get out of range in the chat, you know, they could be timed out. So here we go. Do y'all like that view, or do you like this view better? Which view do y'all like, the full screen or the news type view? I guess I'm going to start this view.
The four were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located.
The true crime story that sent shockwaves across the country.
All of us are shaken.
4 murders, and then the guys just running around on loose is a little unnerving.
The victims, 4 college students.
Ethan, Zaina, Madison, and Kaylee.
I miss her smile. She was so giving.
Positive and fun, and we love her and miss her so much.
Now, a PhD criminology student accused of the murders.
How you feeling, Brian?
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohlberger.
Hello. How you doing? How y'all doing today?
Every inquiring mind wants to know why. Why would Brian Kohlberger do this?
The maximum penalty is death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Plus, the evidence.
On that knife sheath was DNA, likely left there by the killer.
Including those 12 times when he's hanging around this house. You better have a pretty good reason for this. Guess what? The defendant, the suspect, the accused, what does he drive? A white Elantra.
The way that we have been convicting Kohlberger is absolutely appalling and disgusting.
I want all the evidence out. I want it to be clear.
Sorry, I was on mute. There's been individuals that say that mainstream media have been attacking Mr. Kohlberger and not really giving him a fair trial or fairness out in the community, you know. But think about this for a minute. There are people that are advocating for the other side of the coin. There are people that do believe that he is presumed. That is a big word. And I wish more people would start to say that. Presumed innocent. Because that's what people are until they're found guilty in a court of law. And we know that people are presumed innocent. Nobody in these chats are dumb enough to believe that this man is not presumed innocent. So when somebody continues to push that, well, you keep saying he's guilty, he's guilty. No. There's plenty of evidence that have incarcerated this man. So he's presumed innocent until he goes to trial, but there is enough evidence to arrest him and hold him. So does that mean he's totally innocent at the moment? No, he's in custody. So he's presumed innocent by the court of law, but we're not really certain one way or the other.
If I'm the parent of one of these poor kids, he is the boogeyman.
I try not to think too much about any of the darker side of the aspects. I just try to stay positive. There'll be days where I have to focus on the negativity, but today's not one of them. I miss her smile and that she was so giving. When she came home, she was always giving me a hug, always making sure she got a hug before she left the house. Just the simple things. These girls were born 14 days apart. We loved them both so much. It was a great, great story, and I'm sad that it ended, and we lost them both at the same time. I'll never see this car as mine. She paid for it. She felt like this was a super cute car.
It was emotional riding with Steve in Kaylee's car on her birthday. We saw that vehicle at that home each day inside the crime scene tape. Kaylee and her friends Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were stabbed to death at the University of Idaho. And that car was part of the reason Kaylee was in town that weekend of the murders.
When she bought her car, it wasn't her birthday, but it was a gift that she gave herself because she just got a new job. So I remember her being super excited for that and, showing Maddie and driving down there and showing her friends off with it.
Those friends, Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Dylan Mortensen, and Bethany Funk, all lived together in the house on King Road, along with Kaylee's dog, Murphy.
Murphy, you've been a bad boy.
There's a video of all 5 of the girls together in the home posted just 2 weeks before the murders. They're laughing, making fun of each other, imitating each other.
Did anybody do their chores today? I'm just gonna do it. You didn't get out of here.
So let me ask you a question, chat, because this continues to be thrown around. And by no means am I throwing shade on anybody or any theory, but let me ask you a question. Those of you that have seen this video, those of you that have seen the TikToks, the laughing and the joking and the pranks and all that stuff, at any time does that look like a drug hub? Does that look like there's money and drugs and drug addicts and junkies and all kinds of people just meandering around the place? Is there people in the backyard passed out with needles in their arms? Is there people in the front yard with needles and passed out? Is there people walking around like zombies in front of the house? No, there's not. So to say that this was one of those type of homes, in my opinion, I seriously doubt that it was drug related on any level. On any level.
Seriously, got to get out of here.
If you look back at their moments, you can actually see their whole lives. These girls really did do the social media stuff.
Get down. Get down.
And these girls, they were everywhere. So people got a taste and a look and a feel of who they really were. I think people connected with that. And then if you go back, you can see, I hate to say it, but the last hours of their lives.
Those last hours included 2 photos posted by Kaylee. On one of them, she wrote, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people." According to investigators, that last night, Ethan and Xana go to a party at the Sigma Chi house. They're there till about 1:45 a.m. that morning. Maddie and Kaylee go downtown Moscow, to a bar called the Corner Club. And then about 1:30 a.m., they walk to a food truck to grab a bite to eat.
And then what was the back?
Don't forget to remove the
carbonara. The carbonara back of the week.
Here, I'll grab it for you.
Excellent. And then click see rewards.
Enjoy.
And it looks like you do not quite have enough points yet.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
$10.
So about 10 minutes later, the video shows Maddie reaching to grab the food they ordered. Kaylee has her cell phone up as if she's filming the moment. They're laughing with each other until you see them run out of the frame. By 2 a.m., all 5 girls and Ethan Chapin were back at the house on King Road. In just over 2 hours, 4 of the 6 would be dead.
Everybody here? My name is Chief James Fry with the Moscow Police Department. I'm going to be reading from my notes today because I want the information you received to be extremely accurate. The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time. There was no sign of forced entry into the residence. Based on details at the scene, we believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims.
Right away, I think everyone knew this was going to be a big story. I mean, you've got 4 college students taken down at once inside the same home. And the chief comes out pretty quickly and says, listen, no forced entry here. This was a targeted, isolated attack. So most of us thought it should be solved pretty quickly. But that's not what happened here.
We need to make sure we clarify. Okay. Have them restart this feed or... We arrived in Moscow just days after the murders, and you could immediately sense that this was a community on edge, and you could understand why. 4 young people have been brutally murdered, and nobody knows why, and nobody knows who's responsible.
I'm going to pause this for a minute. I want to show you something that I hope every one of you goes and watches. It's free and it's on YouTube. It's a movie that it's kind of like art, depicts what we're talking about right now. I can't show any of it because it'll copyright me, but it's called I'll Be Watching. You just put I'll Be Watching full movie Lifetime and it comes up. Look at that guy right there. He's the one that is so fixated on this girl that he watches her nonstop. And when I was watching this movie, it got me to thinking, because this individual, as soon as she was in a coffee shop, right? And she gets up to leave, she throws her coffee cup in the trash. This individual goes over there and grabs her coffee cup and takes it with him. And he's always around her. Like, he makes sure he leaves like purple roses at her doorstep. And the creepiest stuff is a note that he writes to her. And I'm not going to ruin it for you. But he says, "Do you see me now?" And the reason that I thought about this is because, if you have that attachment to somebody, it's called I'll Be Watching by a Lifetime movie. So hopefully you guys will go watch it. If you have an attachment to somebody, even if you know that they're not yours, in your mind, if you've already created that attachment to them, they're gonna treat you as if you're just playing cat and mouse with them. Do you see me now? Do you see me now? And the individual would literally sit outside of her home in his car watching. Not stalking, just watching. So I'm thinking about, he showed up at her job. he would steal valuable things that were associated with her, such as coffee cups, or he went into her home and stole some panties. I mean, it was just ridiculous. So I'm thinking about the Brian Koberger case. I'm thinking, thank you so much, Melissa. That means a lot. I'll be okay. I know my voice sounds weird, but it makes you think. It's like, okay, was this individual in that house? Did he take anything that could have been associated to one of the victims? Because they didn't mention any of that, because it could be in the gag order. But when you're being surveyed or watched by somebody. Oh, thank you, Andy. It's on Max also. When you're being surveyed by someone like that, there is no boundaries in their eyes. You are their object of their affection, and they're on you all the time. So I was also thinking, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to get into the video because I've had time to think. I sound like some of the women that are in the trauma community. They have that deep voice. I was thinking that if he went to the Mad Greek, okay, and I know that there's been tons of talk about that being debunked and that not happening, but let's just say, for the sake of discussion, let's say he did go, and let's say that that became a pattern, because obviously he went to that bar in Pennsylvania where he went enough that they had a description of him and words on what he supposedly acted like after a couple drinks. So think about that. If he went to the Mad Greek, let's say that he was, he ran into Xana or he ran into Maddie. I would think that Xana would be the nicer of the two. I never saw Maddie as being like the most outgoing. I could be wrong, but I always saw Xana as the more outgoing, the more playful, the more kind and cordial. But I could be wrong. I don't know how y'all feel about that. But anyway, let's say that, he was going there, and he got into his mind that he was attracted to one of them. And then he found out she had a boyfriend. Maybe she saw Ethan there. Maybe he saw Ethan there. And, after the fact, then it becomes jealousy. Because this is your woman. In your mind, this is your woman. And it could have been Maddie. It could have been both of them. Who knows? I'm just throwing this out there. It might not even hold water. But you know what I mean? Just the simple fact of being rejected and being jealous kind of gives you an opportunity to fester that anger towards the object of your affection, because you built up so much time and energy that you need to pay off. And when the payoff doesn't come, just like a child, when a child wants a payoff, what does it do? If it doesn't get what it wants, it throws a temper tantrum. So an adult does the same thing, other than throwing a temper tantrum as a 245-pound adult. This child is going to break stuff. He's going to throw stuff. He's going to do all this other kind of stuff, and even might hurt somebody in the process. But that's just my theory on that. You can take that or leave it. You know what I mean?
We met a group of professors from the University of Idaho. They were out for a bike ride, and they really summed up what the community was going through.
It has deeply affected all our students and our faculty and our staff. And it's been just a struggle to to get through this last week. So
How hungry is this university, this town, for answers?
very much so. The fact that there isn't an answer makes this even worse, you know.
All of us are shaken. I've heard from people all across the country talking about this tragedy. It's a small college town. We all know each other. People in the community knew these students, so everybody's affected one way or another. And part of it's because we just don't know anything yet.
We also met the prosecuting attorney, Bill Thompson. Any new details?
Nothing that I can share.
How was the crime scene?
I can't talk about it. Everybody's working together. The investigation is still active, absolutely.
Yeah, how long they're going to stay here at the home?
Don't know, as long as they need to.
I ended up sitting down with Bill Thompson in his office. And remember, they had not identified a suspect. And a lot of people were wondering, are they going to solve this? And it was one of his answers to me that made me think they know a lot more than what they're saying.
Would you feel safe having a child living near or on campus?
I would, but I say that knowing that many people would not. And I'm probably I'm in a different situation because of the information and the knowledge that I have of how the investigation is progressing.
Coming up, weeks go by without an arrest.
Just your mind has to spin like, okay, what is going on? You know,
some people can commit crimes and there is no justice for that family.
But the families and public didn't know about the investigation.
Partly under her body, partly under her comforter, on her bed, likely left there by the killer.
Moscow is a very typical university town. It has a vibrant downtown with places to eat, places to drink, places to gather.
There's not really much surrounding Moscow. Rolling hills of just wheat fields and various other farms. Small town feel. I think it's roughly 25,000 people, give or take a couple thousand.
I think of North Idaho as a pretty off-the-map type of place, pretty safe place, very family-friendly, and to have 4 murders and then the guys just running around on loose is a little unnerving.
Weeks after the murders of Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves, no arrest had been made. To the point that a lot of the students there on campus had cleared out because there was this fear among the community. And even some of the victims' family members had fears that the investigation was stalled.
I had private investigators and different things, and that's why they told me to slow down, Steve. You know, this thing, you know, me as a father, it's never fast enough, and I want to just charge ahead like probably just like a dumbass, but that's what I knew.
What the families and the public didn't know was that the detectives had some significant evidence and leads, including DNA and a potential eyewitness. At the time of the murders, according to investigators, Kaylee and Maddie were on the 3rd floor of the house in Maddie's room. Kaylee's dog Murphy was across the hall in Kaylee's room. Ethan and Xana were a floor below. Across from them was Dylan Mortensen, and on the 1st floor was Bethany Funk, who was in her room.
Dylan will be a key witness in all this because she's on the same floor as 2 of.
Okay, let me ask you, chat, what your memory is at this question I'm about to ask you. In the beginning, did they not say that Dylan was on the 1st floor with Bethany? Did they not say that? I don't remember if they did or not, but did they not say that both surviving roommates were at the bottom floor? That's what I thought. And then I think people started looking into that, and they started looking at pictures and videos and stuff, and that's why they figured out that she was on the 2nd floor. So I wonder why they said that they were both on the 1st floor. I wonder if they said that so that, you know, the killer, whoever it might have been, might have thought, you know, nobody saw me and nobody knows anything I don't know why they would have said that. I mean, I want to let you guys know something. Like, as most of you know, I'm a criminal justice major. I graduate with my bachelor's in 2025. One of the things that I've read in one of my textbooks, and it blew my mind, during an investigation, the police are allowed to lie on what they have or what they don't have. They can bring somebody in and even say, hey, we know that your car was over here. You know, can you tell us what your car was doing over here and blah, 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 to elicit a confession. And I didn't know that was possible, but yeah, I read that with my own eyes, so that's mind blowing.
The murders. And she opens her door 3 different times. Now, the first couple of times, she really didn't see anything, but she was hearing voices. Maybe it was the dog. Maybe somebody was crying or something. She wasn't quite clear what she heard. But the third time she opens the door, she sees this tall figure dressed in all dark colors, and she noticed his bushy eyebrows. And then this man walks right past her.
Imagine what it would be like to be a young woman who opens the door and sees this man all in black, and all you really see are his eyebrows, and he's tall and he's big. And he just killed 4 people with a knife. He walks right past you and out the door. How close to death were you? It gives me shivers to just think about what that is. And that must just roll through her head every single day. Yeah.
And think about that as well. Look, he walks right by you after he just killed 4 people. Like, he's going to take the time to really rationalize whether he should let you live or kill you. He's already killed 4 people without any thought, without any cost of consequence. I believe that he would have known that she was there, or maybe he did know. If he did know, maybe he was like such in a trance that he said, you know, I'm done. This is all I needed. I'm spent. It's almost like an orgasm. You know what I mean? Like, you build up, and then boom, the release. And I'm not trying to be nasty, but that is kind of like all this. It's just an emotional, physical release, you know? It's like you build it up so much that the only way you feel calm again is release the demon. Release the beast.
That's going to stick with a jury.
According to investigators, Dylan described herself as being in, quote, frozen shock when she saw a man inside her home in the middle of the night. She was so scared, she locked herself in her bedroom. But the thing that raised eyebrows is that nobody did anything about it. In fact, 911 was not called until noon the next day, about 8 hours after the estimated time of the murders.
Some people, when they're very frightened, they just shut down and they tend to isolate and hide. And basically, it's a seeking safety response. If she had been drinking or under the influence of something, she might have just shut down because she really didn't know what to do.
The major piece of evidence that the public didn't know about was a knife sheath left behind likely by the killer. It was found partly under Madison Mogan's body and the comforter on her bed. On the snap of that knife sheath was DNA.
So investigators had DNA from the crime scene, and they took the DNA and they ran it through the National Crime Database, and there were no hits, no matches. But the DNA was still useful because you could eliminate potential suspects. And there were a lot of them, not only ones that law enforcement was looking at, but a whole bunch that people online, all those true crime sleuths that are out there, were looking at as well.
I'd made a video a few weeks ago. Jeremy Regan was included in that video.
I feel some shade being thrown my way on that one. But anyways, think about the forensic part of this, all right? I know I'm throwing some stuff out there that people have probably even thought of or, doesn't sound logical. But as you're carrying a knife around, I'm sure that there's some particles on that knife that get shedded every time you use it. So as metal particles that get shedded, that can tell you the identification of the knife. If they x-rayed the victims, did all the knife wounds, did they match up to this certain knife? Was there a consistency of the knife particles in the body? There's a lot of individuals that say that there's no way that he or she or it or the dog or the pit bull or anybody was capable of doing this with one weapon. I would think so, but think about how a knife kind of deteriorates, like the metal shavings. That's what I'm talking about. I wonder if there would have been any kind of metal shavings that would have been, around the bodies, especially around the wounds. I don't know about that, but I mean, that's what I was going with that, the metal shavings. So I don't know if there would have been any around the body or anything like that.
And a lot of people since then have said that he seemed very suspicious or he was the murderer.
My name is Jeremy Regan, and I live just a couple doors down from where the murders happened.
I first met Jeremy Regan about a week after the murders. He was a neighbor of the girls on King Road. Once people saw Jeremy on camera, many started to speculate that he possibly was the killer. What was it like to be accused of something so horrible?
Offensive. They watched my interview and they said, hey, he's kind of weird. It must be him. And so then they dug into everything I ever did on social media, stuff that my parents had posted about me, taking everything super far out of context. For some people, it was definitely worse than others. I know the various Jacks and Jakes, they got hammered.
Jack Decor and Jake Schreiger. These two guys are the boyfriends of Kaylee and Maddie. As a matter of fact, Jack shared a dog, Murph, with Kaylee. So a lot of people are looking at them, and investigators looked at them as well, but cleared them. So law enforcement says these guys are innocent, but the folks online weren't convinced.
There was also Jack Showalter, who was at the food truck when Maddie and Kaylee were there. He became known as Hoodie Guy. So people were analyzing the food truck video, and they thought he looked quite suspicious.
There's been a lot of speculation and rumors. We're the official source of information. Individuals who are being harassed in this situation, people need to be careful.
Another early focus of the investigation was video. Detectives gathered recordings from homes, businesses all around the time of the murders in that area. And one thing stood out. One vehicle stood out. That was a white Hyundai Elantra.
We're looking for that car because we believe through our investigation that that car was in the area during the time of the murder.
I keep stopping this because I don't want to get copyrighted. Let me ask you guys a question because I enjoy talking with you guys as well. Can you put yourself in in Ellie's shoes when you're viewing the camera footage, when you're viewing, all the things that are around the crime scene, and you notice something that just sticks out at you? And I know that a lot of people don't trust the Elantra footage. They don't trust the Linda Lane stuff. They don't trust that there was even an Elantra, stuff like that. I get it. I understand. But for the sake of argument, let's say that there is a pattern of circled, and this car is doing that circling. would you not, as a law enforcement officer, take notice on that, or would you just ignore it as just a coincidence as you replay the route from Pullman to King Road? You see this same vehicle heading down this way, and it ends up where the crime was committed. So you're able to catch it right by his house, and it ends up at the crime scene. I believe in coincidences, but damn, how coincidental is that? Can y'all answer me that? Have y'all been able to debunk that? Have y'all been able to create an alternate theory on why this car was seen so many times? I mean, not something that is outlandish, hopefully something that makes a lot of sense. Because I respect everyone's thoughts. I respect your intuition. I respect all of it. I'm just kind of curious how in your mind you put all that stuff together.
According to investigators, beginning at 3:29 a.m., the white Elantra made 3 separate passes by the house on King Road. Then at 4:04, they say it was back for a 4th time, stopping in front of the house before traveling on to do a 3-point turn. It then drove past the house again and out of the camera's view. At 4:20, it was back in view and leaving the area at a high rate of speed.
So everyone's looking for this car, this white Elantra. And there's an officer, a campus police officer from Washington State University, across the state border, who decides to run a list of all the white Elantras on campus. And he finds one. It's registered to a guy named Brian Kohlberger.
They end up finding his car in the parking lot of Kohlberger's campus apartment. When they run his name, they find that he had been pulled over twice in the months before the murders, once in Moscow and once in Pullman.
Hello, I am Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded.
I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so yeah, where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
so even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines, like there's one white line and there's another one. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of put your vehicle, place your vehicle.
During the traffic stop in Moscow, Kohlberger gave the officer his cell phone number.
Now, when you get a phone number, it changes everything because you get access to it in a different way.
I wish we would have heard him say his phone number. That would have been awesome. That would have kind of dispelled a lot of rumors. Was it 84? Was it 9458 or was it 9548? Which one do y'all think it really was? Because there's a lot of theories going around. And I'm not throwing shade on nobody because you know what? People are going to do what they're going to do. But what do you think? You think it was a typo in the PCA? Do you think it was 9458?
That's one more piece of evidence, one more piece of the puzzle. Is it enough to see what the puzzle says? Not necessarily, but you're getting closer.
According to investigators, Kohlberger's phone records showed that between 2:27 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. the morning of the murders, Kohlberger's phone was turned off or in airplane mode or possibly out of battery, but it wasn't connecting to any cell phone tower.
Sometimes it's not about evidence. It's about the lack of evidence that actually matters. In this particular case, we had a cell phone that was turned off for a very specific window of time. During a window of time where 4 people were murdered and he is the singular suspect. That means something.
Investigators say that when they looked back at
I mean, even if this evidence, people say they set him up, he's a patsy, this, that, and the other. Do you understand how the investigation goes? It's not about convicting the person based on what the evidence you find. It's about finding the evidence that could possibly link the person to the crime. That's all it is. It's not about convicting him. So all the people that are saying there's not enough evidence, he's innocent, he shouldn't be in jail. It's not about that. It's about, let's say I go out tonight and I go and I pass this car and I rub up against it. They catch me on camera and, I come back by it 3 more times and I'm looking in the vehicle and then that car gets stolen. Even though they don't see me stealing the car, you don't think that they're going to question me and put me at suspect number 1? You get what I'm saying? That's all I'm meaning. And they're not trying to convict me of the crime. That's not the police's job. That's not the detective's job. That's the court's job. So once the police gather the information and the evidence and they do their interviews and they do their interrogations and they put everything together and they do the PCA, that is all that's needed for presumption of guilt. And it's interesting to me that so many people do not understand that, because they want to go back in time and say, well, there's not enough evidence. There's not enough evidence to convict. It's not about the evidence that you use to incarcerate the person. It's about the evidence that the attorneys have to either prove innocence or guilt. And that'll be shown at the trial. So right now, at this point, they had, according to the grand jury, enough evidence to indict. And that's all they needed. Is he innocent? I don't know. Is he guilty? I don't know. We're all going to find out one day, though. And I hope that you understand the difference in that, because there's still so many people that are hell-bent on wanting to fight you about that. He's innocent. An innocent man is in jail. An innocent man is in jail. It's not about being innocent. And he's presumed innocent until his trial date. There was enough evidence to find him culpable to arrest him and place him in custody. Whether he's innocent or not, there was still enough evidence to show the judge that this person, I'll bet all the other people that you've investigated, meets the most probable cause of your investigation to possibly be the suspect. And that's all that means. You don't want to hear that because it doesn't sell papers. It doesn't sell drama. It doesn't sell any of that, But that's the honest truth. That's how our system works.
Kohlberger's cell phone records in the 5 months leading up to the murders that his phone was in the area of the girl's home on 12 separate occasions.
This was not just something where he happened to be in the region one time and it's easily explainable. The problem is now you really have to be able to explain that other dozen times the month before. You better have a pretty good reason for this.
Coming up, the arrest.
Hey, Brian. How you feeling? How you feeling, Brian?
How strong is the evidence against Brian Kohlberger?
You read the affidavit and you just find out that he was stalking them, he was hunting them. He was just a person looking for an opportunity.
Imagine what happens when you're finally able to get the results of the DNA sample. We got this guy. We've got this guy.
We don't know when and how this DNA got there. I'm not at all worried about the DNA.
Last night, in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohlberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
Mr. Koberger was taken into custody without incident. The scene was turned over to the FBI Evidence Response Team for processing.
According to a Monroe County, Pennsylvania prosecutor, when SWAT arrived at the family home of Brian Koberger, they found him standing in his parents' kitchen at 1:30 in the morning.
Koberger was found awake in the kitchen area, dressed in shorts and a shirt and wearing latex medical type gloves, and apparently was taking his personal trash and putting it into separate Ziploc baggies.
The DNA found on the knife sheath under Madison Mogen's body was the piece of the puzzle investigators needed. 3 days before Koberger's arrest, detectives used trash from Koberger's parents' home for a DNA sample that turned out to be a match to the suspected killer's father.
Imagine what happens when you're finally able to get the results of the DNA sample that you pull from the father. You can just hear the champagne popping. This is a quad murder. That has to be elation in that squad room, in that war room, when they're sitting together and they're looking at each other and going, we got this guy. We've got this guy.
After Brian Koberger was taken into custody in Pennsylvania, he met with an attorney who said publicly that Koberger told him he believed that he would be exonerated.
He is very intelligent. In my hour conversation with him, that comes off. I can tell that. And he understands where we are right now.
Hey, Brian, how you feeling? How you feeling, Brian?
Even though Brian Koberger wasn't fighting extradition, he still had to appear in a Pennsylvania courtroom. I was inside of that courtroom when he walked in, and everyone was able to see him for the first time. His mother broke down into tears. The Koberger family, they were sitting on the front row of that courtroom. He made sure to make that eye contact with them, and he kept looking at them.
Big breaking news, folks, just moments ago. Here it is, the arrival of the accused killer in Idaho.
It was quite a scene when Koberger arrived back in Idaho. He was taken off the plane in Pullman and put into a pickup truck, and then a caravan of law enforcement vehicles drove him into the Latah County Jail parking lot where media and even members of the public were outside waiting for him. The next time we saw him would be in a courtroom.
The maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Unlike in his Pennsylvania appearance, where Koberger looked back to see his family in the courtroom, he seemed to make a point in Idaho not to do so, likely because he knew the victims' families would be in the gallery.
I feel like he's scared to look at me in the eyes and start to.
I just don't understand how he waived his speedy trial. If you were innocent, or even if you thought you were innocent, you'd say, let's get this show on the road. I don't want to go through all the bullshit of a trial. Let's get this show on the road. You know? And I believe, well, I mean, if you're not waiving your right to a speedy trial, they have to have everything in place. If I'm correct, I think it's within 30 days, right? So, I mean, I don't understand why he waived his speedy trial. You know, here we are 2 years later, and we're still looking for his defense attorney who wants to continue to make this thing go on and on and on and on. I mean, after a while, you have to be confident with what you got. If you're so certain that your guy is innocent, step up to the plate. Let's do this. You know, Richard Allen, he stepped up to the plate. He was like, win or lose, I'm gonna do this. I'm tired of waiting. Was that the smartest move? I don't know. But either way, I think in this case, Heather, I think that the state has pushed back a little bit as much as the defense by not giving the discovery. I'll give you that. I'm not convinced. You came in late. I said that if he's innocent, I want him to be innocent and to have the best life. But if he's guilty, he needs to pay the price. That's what I said earlier. I don't know if you were meaning that to be ugly, but I'm not trying to convince anybody. I don't have that power. You've been in here long enough to know my stance on this, right? Just like every other panel that I've seen you on, they push the same thing every day also. The same thing. And you're in their chats as well, so I have that right to do that as well, right? Yes or no? I'm not going to take it rude because I'm sick and my mind's playing tricks on me. But hopefully you didn't mean that rude. Because I'm not trying to convince anybody. I don't have that much power. But if he is innocent, he deserves to be innocent. But I want it to be in a way where there's not a lot of misconstrued, he barely was innocent. You know what I mean? Because that's going to hurt him worse than if he just if they full blown show that he's innocent. It's a very sensitive case. And one more thing, Southwest Firefly, I don't do this case every night. Obviously, you haven't been in here for the Matthew Perry readings or the Nikki Sixx readings or, the Texas killing fields. You need to catch up. You're missing some good stuff. This is just what sells tickets, right? Causes arguments and makes people happy whenever they get their endorphins going by one way or the other. But I have to ask you this, okay? I do have to ask you this. To be fair, what convinces you that he's innocent? Any of y'all? What convinces you other than the PCA? Because all y'all say that's irrelevant and bullshit. What convinces you that he's innocent? Give me some evidence. That way we can have a good argument or a good discussion. Because honestly, I never hear anybody say, well, this is my reasoning for him being innocent. Okay. That wasn't his car. All right. Well, I'm not convinced either. I do have a right to run a channel, correct? That everything's under gag order. Everything's under gag order. I didn't make this court TV thing up. Somebody else did it. I'm just showing it.
Understand what's about to happen to him. He picked the wrong family.
So once the suspect appears in court, prosecutors release the probable cause affidavit, and this stuff is filled with detail after detail after detail, things we didn't know. 18 pages worth. And at that point, the public got some answers. But more importantly, the families finally got some answers.
You read the affidavit and you just find out that nobody understands exactly why, but he was stalking them, he was hunting them.
The affidavit in this case lays out the evidence against Brian Koberger, but there is a gag order here, so we don't know everything the prosecution has. But a lot of people think.
So why would a father say that? Why would a father say that if it wasn't true? You know what I mean? Why would he say that? He was stalking them. He was hunting them. Why would he say that? You know, there's a genre that don't believe anybody's guilty of killing, and it's called true crime. Y'all believe nobody's guilty. Everybody's innocent. We had a guy that was proven guilty today, and there's still people slamming the judicial system. Until you become a police officer or an investigator or an attorney, and you see the ugliness of the world other than on the internet, then you'll really see what life is really about. And I'm not trying to be ugly there, but this is an ugly world, and it's not just about sitting behind a screen watching some guy that nobody knows being fixated by his story. He was found guilty. Regardless of how you wordplay it, he's guilty.
He's the guy, he must be guilty. But there's a long way to go, and a lot of people think that this case isn't a slam dunk.
It's absolutely disgusting. This guy does not have a presumption of innocence. He has the assumption of guilt. I'm Sarah Azari. I'm a criminal trial attorney in Los Angeles. I'm currently a legal analyst for News Nation, and I am the host of the Presumption podcast. You know, pretrial convictions of high-profile defendants in high-profile cases is nothing new, but Koberger is a whole other level. And I think not only we found him guilty of slaying the 4 Idaho students, but we've decided that he's going to get the death penalty.
The most significant piece of evidence for prosecutors is the DNA of the defendant found on the knife sheath of the alleged murder weapon located underneath victim Madison Mogan's body.
We don't know when and how this DNA got there. So if Brian Koberger is person A and he touches this knife sheath, and then somehow this knife sheath is picked up by somebody else. I mean, he could touch it, he could handle it, it could be anything. And then that person then somehow is in this Kings Road home. That is a perfect explanation of how Koberger's DNA was on that knife sheath. Is insufficient to place him in that home, let alone to place the murder weapon in his hands. That's why I'm not at all worried about the DNA.
I'm Tiffany Roy, and I'm a forensic DNA expert. I work privately in the area of forensic DNA and forensic biology. I've been doing this work for 17 years. DNA can be transferred onto items that people have never contacted and never touched. It can be found in rooms where people have never set foot. He may never have touched that sheath, and his DNA could have been transferred there by some contact with another item or another person. We can't tell how it got there. We can't tell when it got there.
Or it could be there because he committed this quadruple murder and took the lives of these 4 students. And maybe when he was closing the snap, his thumb touched it before he even showed up at the murder scene. And maybe that knife sheath got loose because those girls were fighting for their lives. Now, you take that evidence in conjunction with all the other evidence, including those phone records. Wow.
Investigators believe that Koberger's cell phone was off or in airplane mode around the estimated time of the murders because he turned it off.
We've been saying it was off, his phone was off. We don't know if it was off. It could have been off, it could have been in airplane mode. or it could have just simply not picked up signal during that time. What's odd, of course, and what's problematic for the defense is that his phone did pick up signal before the murders and after the murders.
Another significant coincidence, for those who believe in coincidences, I don't, is that there's this white car that's driving around and around at the time of the murders, close to the scene of the murders, caught on video. And guess what? The defendant, the suspect, the accused, what does he drive? A white Elantra.
The car is driving around, but then suddenly during the window of the murders, we don't know where this car was. We don't know where it was parked. We just know nothing about the car. Identification of the Hyundai Elantra as like the suspect vehicle, that's a problem.
Another part of the case against Brian Kohberger is an eyewitness account. Dylan Mortensen, one of the surviving roommates, she told police that she saw a man around the time of the murders dressed in black, bushy eyebrows, wearing a mask covering his nose and his mouth that walked past her down the hallway.
And then we have Dylan, the surviving roommate, and she's so afraid that she goes back in her bedroom and locks herself up and then doesn't call 911 for 8 hours later. Okay, that is highly unusual. We look to expected behavior, expected response, reasonable response. That is what makes sense to jurors. Jurors are normal people. So you tell them a story, it better make sense, right? And it doesn't make sense.
Credibility always matters with witnesses. And this witness comes across as credible. Is she flawed? Yes.
Next, the house on King Road.
No one that lives here right now.
And the type of person capable of committing these murders.
Whoever did this, be it Kohberger or someone else, is a sexual domination killer.
Plus, Brian Kohberger's defense.
If he says, I was in this house before, that's why my DNA is in this house. All of a sudden, you might have a completely different trial.
Hey guys, Moscow PD. Hey, turn the music down. Turn the music down. Hello, miss. What's your name?
Xana.
Xana, do you live here?
Yes.
We've already talked to Maddie once and told her the same thing.
The house at 1122 King Road, where 4 University of Idaho students were murdered, was known as a college party house going back before Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Dylan, and Bethany all lived there. In the fall of 2022, just a few months before the murders, Moscow police responded to a noise complaint at the house on multiple occasions.
And if I do have to come back here, $300-some tickets coming your way.
Okay.
And it only gets more expensive from there. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. There was even an instance where there are people at the house, but none of the roommates are even there.
How goes it?
Oh, hey, how are you?
Who lives here?
We're not actually sure.
You don't know who lives here?
No, I
We're
don't.
just here for a noise complaint. So everyone here is trespassing?
Well, no one's here that's trespassing, but no one that lives here is here right now.
So where'd they go?
They're just not here. I have no clue where they went. No clue.
So you guys just throwing a party in their house at
They were here at one point. They're not here right now. I just searched all the rooms.
They left and went over to some other party, and everyone is about to go over to another party. Okay. Who does live here? What are their names? I am actually not sure.
Jeremy Reagan lived near the house on King Road for a few years and saw a lot. Tell me about the house. What do you know about the house?
So when I moved here my first year, that house was not super bad, notorious for like students going in and out partying all the time. My second year, there was a ton of people all the time, in and out constantly. And then my third year, which is the year that all this happened, it was much more similar to the first year I was here. They did have more stuff going on there, but they were definitely nowhere near as loud, as crazy as that second year that I was here.
Does the fact that so many people were in and out of this house factor into the case against Brian Kohberger?
The fact that
I said all that and I was muted. Heather, I was asking you, have you ever been at a house that had the cops called on them for like a noise complaint or loud party or anything like that? And I was saying that I lived in a small town and I used to have this cop that used to harass us like that. And he would talk to us the same way that these cops were talking to these guys and this gal. You know, they would just be talking to us like they were trying to insinuate something and, you know, just get you to react, just to get you to react. So they could, you know, either search the house or they could, you know, get something on you. You know what I'm saying? And I think also at the point that I believe the individual don't see as well, now that I'm older and I understand a lot of things differently, people are just rude. They're just rude to you, especially this day and age. And it's been happening for over, I don't know, a couple decades now, I guess. But people are just rude. You ask them a question, they don't answer the question. They smart off to you. They're sarcastic. And all you're trying to do is get some information or you're trying to do your job and they're making it harder on you. Or they're, you know, they're doing all this other stuff and just let me do my job and go on about your business. You know what I mean? I deal with that every day at work. Instead of answering questions, people are sarcastic. They don't want to answer questions. They just look at you like you're stupid. I mean, they'll give you all kinds of runarounds. But at the same time, these are the individuals that people are calling you to go and help them, keep them away from them. You don't believe how many families contact us. He's out of control. She's out of control. She keeps running away. She wanted to put her hands on me. She wanted to do this. She wanted to do that. Yeah, but the moment that we step up to do our job and try to take care of the situation, you have 100 people telling you how wrong you are in your thinking and your actions and everything else. You know, it's like you either want our help or you don't. If you don't want our help, then don't bitch when the world goes to shit. You know what I mean? And I hate to say it like that, but it's the truth. I mean, and I can kind of see both sides of the situation on this video right here. But at the same time, I'm sure they got tired of responding to a noise complaint. I would have what? Do you believe that Brian called the noise complaint at 3 a.m.? You think he's the one that called the noise complaint at the band field? There's a question for you. Who do you think made that call?
This Kings Road house was a party house is a huge big deal because it expands the universe of suspects. Who was there at the time of the murders? What was their connection to the victims? Who had access to this home before? Did they have possible motive to kill? For months, we've been calling this a party house. This is a party venue.
One of the most important parts of this case is that DNA. And what we know is this is a party house. We know that there were hundreds of kids in this house. It could even have included him. And the thing is if he was in this house, are you suggesting that these four know everybody who's been there? I doubt that. And as a result, if he says, I was in this house before, that's why my DNA is in this house. Now we talk about that, and we talk about DNA transfer, and all of a sudden, you might have a completely different trial.
It's not just that the defendant's DNA is in the house. It's on a knife sheath, which is found next to Maddie's body. I'm a former prosecutor. This is game over DNA. And it's not just any DNA. It's single source DNA.
Single source DNA profile is the most informative type of profile we can hope to get from a crime scene. It's a lot of clear information and it's a lot of very specific information. If you're looking for DNA from a perpetrator, that's something that's related to a weapon and a weapon that could have been used in the commission of this crime, it would be a very rare event for anyone else to match with a single source male DNA profile. So it's very strong evidence.
Brian Koberger.
After graduating from DeSales University in the spring of 2022, Brian Koberger was accepted into the criminology PhD program at Washington State University. At the time of the Idaho student murders, Koberger was a teaching assistant. And a few of his students came forward to say they noticed a difference in his behavior after the murders.
No reason to connect him to that, at the time, but definitely around then, he started grading everybody just 100s. He seemed preoccupied is what I would have said at the time.
He would come in, be there for 10 minutes, leave, not say much. So he didn't really do that much, but you could tell there was some off about him.
What's still unclear is the prosecution's theory as to why he would want to kill these young people and what, if any, was the connection.
Motive is not an element of crime or murder. But of course, every inquiring mind wants to know why. Why would Brian Koberger do this to 4 innocent victims, college students? Could the state go to trial without motive? Absolutely, but I bet they won't. And the problem here is that we don't even have a connection to these victims. Forget about motive.
Steve Gonsalves, Kaylee's father, believes there's a good chance the murderer was tracking Kaylee and or her best friend, Maddie.
I'd be a little bit surprised if there wasn't a clearer touch point that would suggest that he was interested in 1 or 2 of the people more than he was the others.
An Instagram account that was taken down shortly after Koberger's arrest with the username of Brian Koberger was following several members of the Koberger family. The account also followed Madison Mogan.
I'm Benjamin Mogan. I'm Madison Mogan's father.
I first met Maddie Mogan's father, Ben, at the Mad Greek restaurant a few weeks after the murders. Maddie and Xana both worked there. It's a popular restaurant in downtown Moscow.
Tell me about what a beautiful person she was.
Oh, she was so great. She lit up every room she'd come in, and she was just so positive and fun, and we love her and miss her so much.
The Mad Greek restaurant. It's also one of the first places that comes up if you search for vegan food in Moscow. We know Brian Koberger claims to be a vegan because he asked for a vegan meal plan at the jail.
So maybe he did see Maddie and Xana at the Mad Greek and sort of became obsessed with them. But prosecutors made a point in their probable cause affidavit. They went into detail about this Reddit post that the defendant allegedly made, calling out to criminals to provide him with the reason why they chose their victims and committed their crimes. Now, I understand he studies this stuff, but this is still a little strange.
Sounds like he's looking for the reasons why people do the things that they do, maybe to answer the question for himself, maybe to explain for him why he's motivated in the way that he is. Are you trying to figure out who you are, or are you trying to figure out who they are? And in this particular case, I think the prosecutors are going to say, yeah, this was about him trying to figure out who he is, because we can tell you who he is. He's this guy.
I am Siobhan Scott. I am a psychotherapist from Portland, Oregon.
So what are your thoughts about this Reddit post?
I see a theme with him for years in his online writings of going back and trying to make sense out of himself. And I think he was in that category of, I'm studying all this because I want to understand myself. And so I think that was driving his research. There's also, in a rather perverse way, perhaps an attempt to develop some sense of camaraderie with other people and to get a sense of maybe I'm really not the only one who has these thoughts and feelings and experiences.
What do his studies tell you about Bryan Kohberger?
It's not that unusual for sadistic killers to study criminology. We think of the BTK killer in Kansas, the Golden State killer in California. Both had criminology degrees, and the California killer did go on to become law enforcement officers, and there have been quite a few others. So I think there are three reasons people study criminology. The first is because they're altruistic and they really want to make the world a safer place. So they have good motivations. The second reason is because they're absolutely fascinated by the criminal mind, which can be a fine reason, but the dark side of that is they're trying to figure themselves out. And the third reason is because they have a plan to commit crimes and they're studying police tactics and procedures so that they can become a better criminal. And if Kohberger is the killer, I think those second two reasons would be at play. Whoever did this, be it Kohberger or someone else, is a sexual domination killer. And this is someone that's created a sadistic theatrical production based on fantasies that he's had for many years. Now, the fantasies serve to meet his emotional needs to express rage at women and to have a sense of godlike power, because others' vulnerability makes him feel invincible and their deaths make him feel like a.
And see, when you hear experts talk like that, people tune it out. To a lot of people, it's just mumbo jumbo bull crap. They're just trying to paint a picture. They're just trying to paint him bad, all this and that. But this woman's a psychotherapist, meaning that she studies these type of individuals. And who better to tell you about somebody than somebody who studies them? She's just telling you the type of person he is. I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue, Heather. Do you got those stats? But seriously, you know, she's not just describing Kohberger. She's describing most people who turn out to be in that realm of study that she's done. It's not just Kohberger.
God.
Coming up, the legal battle ahead as prosecutors seek the death penalty.
To have a full defense, he absolutely needs to know that this investigation against him was 100% according to protocol.
Plus, remembering the victims.
Through all this, I hope we can all look
at those
through that
drug
dark
addict
tunnel
junkies.
and see the light and follow that light. And I pray
Aryan
that we have
Brotherhood all
justice
over it.
someday.
Get out of here.
Since his arrest in December 2022, Bryan Kohberger has made a number of court appearances, and his defense team has filed a number of motions challenging everything from the grand jury indictment against him to how the investigators processed the DNA found at the crime scene.
They didn't get a hit for the DNA that was found at the crime scene with the national database. So they moved to a public database, one of those genealogy databases, and they got a hit. And it was for the suspect's father. But now the defense is taking a closer look at that, saying, well, wait a minute. We want to know and we want to see exactly how you tested all of this DNA to get that result.
What's going on in Bryan Kohberger's case that's very concerning is the government does not want to turn over in discovery what all was searched, what databases were searched, and what records were obtained.
When you're talking about a defendant's right to a fair trial and his due process and his Sixth Amendment to have a full defense, he absolutely needs to know that this investigation against him was 100% according to protocol and that there was integrity in this investigation.
The defendant apparently has an alibi. Now, a little strange here. They say, his attorneys, that he likes to go out at night and in the early morning hours and sort of drive around. And that's what he was doing at the time of the murders. Couldn't have done it.
Kohberger's alibi is that he wasn't at the crime scene, but instead he was driving around alone. That statement of his alibi doesn't tell us obviously exactly what time he was driving, where he was driving to and from, and why. I mean, we don't have any of those details. He's not saying something that's completely inconsistent with the evidence.
The defense is also claiming that cameras should not be allowed inside the courtroom, claiming Koberger's every move is being analyzed in a way that's prejudicial. Kaylee's father, Steve Gonsalves, has some thoughts on that.
If you're not a personable person and you give off weird vibes, yeah, you probably don't want nobody to actually see the truth and see who you are and read you for how you behave. You can't hide the truth, man. I'm so tired of the secretive and all that stuff. I want this stuff to be out in the open. I want all the evidence out. I want it to be clear. I want the community to look at that evidence.
And Ms. Taylor, is Mr. Koberger prepared to plead to these charges?
Your Honor, we will be standing silent.
A plea of not guilty was entered for Brian Koberger after he chose to stand silent at his arraignment. His trial is expected to begin sometime in 2024.
Kaylee, you will never be forgotten. We will live right for you every day with your mentality in our mind. We love you so much.
She embodied her own sunshine, and that's when her skies became limitless.
I sent you my heart.
I'm at Charlie D'Amelio, check!
Most important is love. Like it's the only thing you know how. Nothing even matters except love and human connection.
I'm not a big drinker, but maybe I should have something. You're not a big drinker?
I was lucky enough to be able to explore life with Maddie. Maddie was the best at spreading love.
Distance makes the heart know who you love. Xana was the funniest person I knew and made me laugh every time I spent time with her.
Honestly, it's just
Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love.
Oh, sweet love of mine.
Ethan was always someone you could count on to make you smile and cheer up your mood. And I feel so lucky to have shared so many great memories with him.
Minions, tonight we steal the moon. Yes. Sweet love of mine.
Through all this, I hope we can all look through that dark tunnel and see the light and follow that light. And I pray that we have justice someday.
I mean, how can you hear that? How can you hear that and lose focus on the reality of this whole case, and that's those 4 kids? Every time somebody goes after the parents, you're in essence going after the kids. Every time somebody talks bad about the parents, you're slamming the memory of the kids. You can't say it's all about justice when you're slamming the parents. If you're so hard up for money, get your own GoFundMe page. Get somebody to start you one. You want me to start you a GoFundMe? If that's going to make you be quiet about it, I'll start you a GoFundMe page. That way you can quit talking about it. Seriously. I mean, these kids are the reason, that they're trying to get justice. And I get it. I get the Kobergers have their own struggles as well on the other side, knowing that their son has been locked up for 2 years, had the potential to be found guilty or innocent of a crime, whether he committed it or whether he did not. I get it. None of these families are at ease. So to sit there and pick sides, that's really immature. That's really immature. And if that's all you got to talk about, that's what gets you clicks and views. How can you say that the Gonsalveses are grifters if you're getting money off the same topic that you're accusing them of getting money for? Hypocrite. Hypocrite. But like I said a while ago up in the chat, I said I started this channel and I do talk about this case a lot because I use it to what I'm learning to make sense to me. And why not show others at the same time? That's the only reason I even started this channel. No other reason. In this case, I thought, you know what? It's going to be an interesting case. Why don't I use it to learn something and put to knowledge what I'm learning? And why not share it with the world? Right? I mean, those of you are going to have your opinion on my views, and that's cool. I have my opinion on your views. I have my opinion on the way you do things. Does it really make me right and you wrong? Perception is 99% of person's reality. So think about that a minute. But I'm not here to make enemies. I'm just here to do a live, say hello to the people that come and graciously support my channel and come in here and talk to me and then leave. Unfortunately, I'm like sweating so bad. I don't know if that's a good thing. Maybe I'm breaking the fever, hopefully. Hey PKC, thank you for being here. But one thing that you will never get from me is an excuse or an explanation to try to get on your good side. I'm an honest person. And if you can't handle the honesty, I guess this isn't the place for you. And that saddens me because as adults, we should be able to meet each other. Even if we don't agree on everything, we should be able to talk to each other and still, at the end of everything, shake hands and still be okay with each other as human beings. Nothing else. Nothing else. And that's what I'm trying to change over here is that we don't all have to be sarcastic. We don't have to be smartasses. We don't have to be hateful. We don't have to call names. We can just be who we are. Kind of like with Southwest Firefly. I didn't really understand or agree what she was saying, but was I ugly to her? No, I wasn't. I wasn't. Thank you so much for being here, Pettit Ray. And that's good. Maybe I'm breaking this fever. And thank you, Melissa, for saying that. Those of you that are new in the chat, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your kind words. Like I said, I'm not an asshole. I'm just very direct and to the point. I don't waste a lot of time, and I don't waste my words. And sometimes things need to be said, even if they're not popular. So with that being stated, I'm going to ask you one time, can you dig it? Can you dig it? If you can't dig it. Did you hear my voice crack? If you can't dig it, get yourself a bigger shovel. Feel like I'm going through puberty. Maestro, cue that music.